Good evening and welcome to the latest from 7 News. Tonight, Australia's southeast has been in the grip of an unprecedented bushfire crisis, but tonight there is some relief. Our team standing by live across 3 states in all the major fire zones as volatile conditions keep communities and emergency services on the edge. Let's take a look at what we know now right across the country. There's a state of emergency in New South Wales where 10 emergency warnings are right now in place. In Victoria, 13 fires are burning at emergency level or higher. A total of 6 people are right now missing. 23 people have been killed as a result of the bushfires. On top of that, thousands of homes have been destroyed, hundreds of thousands have been evacuated. Let's begin at the New South Wales RFS headquarters where officials are tracking the situation, and Sam Brett's live there right now. Sam, good evening. Touch and go with this southerly still sweeping the state. What is the latest information you have there?
Michael, good evening. Well, that southerly has passed through Wollongong and it has now hit the southern suburbs of Sydney. I am being told that it will hit Western Sydney in the next hour or so, and there are fears that it could fan the flames there. But the big concern for our firefighters tonight is that Green Wattle Creek fire that is burning north of Mittagong. That has now burned through 271,000 hectares of land. So while that southerly has passed through, the firefighters here tell me that that fire has shown to be extremely unpredictable, and that is at emergency warning at the moment. So they're certainly keeping a close eye on that fire. The other fire that is of most concern is called the Border Fire. That is at the Bega Valley, that is north of the Victorian border. Now that is coming very, very close to homes in a small township called Eden. I'm being told there are a number of historical buildings there, Michael. So the fear is that possibly tonight that entire town could go up in flames. Unfortunately for the residents who are still there, they are being told that it is simply too late to leave and they need to find some shelter. So at the moment, just to update you, we have 10 fires that are now at emergency warning, 11 that are at watch and act, and 134 fires that are burning right across New South Wales.
But what about the coming days, Sam? What are they saying there?
Well, they're saying that conditions are easing, but that the threat is far from over. So they will go in tomorrow, they will assess the damage, but they're also saying that people who are from those fire-prone areas do not return. As I mentioned before, the fire is extremely unpredictable. So they simply don't know what is in those fire-prone areas, and they're just asking people to stay away in the coming days. Michael? All
right, Sam Brett at RFS headquarters, thank you for that this evening. The New South Wales town of Narooma has been under direct threat from those South Coast bushfires, and Tim Lester joins us live from there tonight. Tim, hello to you. What is the latest there this evening?
Well, Michael, if you compare what has happened here today and the situation we have tonight with those warning maps or maps from RFS as to the potential for fires in and around Narooma, Bermagui and other coastal towns, this area has done remarkably well today. Narooma, in the end, not threatened, nor Bermagui, and the southerly change late afternoon appears to have helped these 2 coastal villages. Certainly residents here were very happy when those wind gusts started coming in from the south. They brought the temperature down, and they also brought the winds from a quarter where there is no fire threat, at least for these villages. There is a fire threat that could be pushed by southerly breezes elsewhere. Sam was mentioning one earlier. In fact, the 2 fires to the south and west of Eden are a case where the winds could turn to be dangerous, not helpful. But round here, Michael, so far the situation much better than had been feared.
Well, that's good news. The situation, however, for the Prime Minister is not as good tonight. Timmy sparked some backlash after tweeting a short video spruiking the government's response to the devastating bushfires, a promo of sorts. Have a look at this. All right, Tim. Well, it's an ad for the government's what it believes are its achievements during this bushfire. The critics tonight have been thick and fast, many calling it tone deaf. What has been the reaction so far?
Well, there is a clear complaint here from many aimed at the Prime Minister that he is taking advantage of the fire situation to promote his political cause. The Prime Minister, of course, called the National Security Committee of Cabinet together to discuss the issue of resources for fires, has announced those resources. This essentially an answer to extensive criticism that he received for not resourcing our firefighting effort anywhere near well enough. So he wants to look active and is, but has produced an ad that at least has Liberal authorisation on it at the end, so looks entirely in that sense political. Many believe that's grubby, and so they're giving him an earful for it on social media tonight. The Prime Minister would have hoped this would be a positive in terms of answering his critics, but he faces a whole new storm. Michael?
Off the mark, it would seem. All right, Tim Lester in the rumour, thank you. Further north, the Batemans Bay area has been very active with water bombing taking place throughout the day, and Jeff Parry joins me live from there tonight. Jeff, hello to you. What's the latest in your region?
Yes, Michael, I'm at the Batemans Bay evacuation centre. Hard to see it, isn't it? And that's because it's sitting in darkness. The whole town, thousands and thousands of homes in Batemans Bay and surrounds, lost power this afternoon. It still hasn't come back. No word when that will happen. If you had a caravan or a camper van, you get a slightly little bit of extra comfort. There's some emergency lighting going on in the evacuation centre itself. It's a pavilion over my shoulder. But most people are just doing it tough. They're spending another day or another night in their cars. They just headed off their bed early and, treat it as just one of the things they've had to put up with, Michael.
Indeed. All right, Jeff Parry there, North Batemans Bay, thank you. Still in New South Wales, in Nellingham, west of Batemans Bay, firefighters are battling blazes whipped up by strong north to northwesterly winds. Got the right camera angle now. They're exhausted and at their wits' end. Let's have a look at this. Let's go to Chermit in the Riverina region of New South Wales, where there are reports of property losses. Reporter Han Nguyen joins me now. Han, good evening. So tell me, which areas are being worst hit in that region?
Well, Michael, it's been quite a chaotic day here in the Riverina region. Areas that we thought were safe were issued with emergency warnings. We spent the day travelling between here in Chermit, Batlow and Adelong. When we were in Batlow, an emergency warning was issued, which forced us out of the area. When the winds came, it came in hard and it came in strong, and it dramatically changed the conditions of the front. We are now hearing reports that there have been property losses at Batlow and nearby Tobingo.
So, yeah, tell me about that then. Any number or any idea of how many properties have been lost so far, Han?
It is too early to tell how many properties have been lost, but fire investigators will return to Batlow and nearby Tobingo tomorrow morning to assess the damage. But, Michael, a southerly has come through and temperatures have eased just a little, but it will still be a long night for firefighters.
It will, but maybe some relief. All right, Han Nguyen, thank you. OK, let's rewind a bit and go back to what I was saying in New South Wales, in Nelligan. West of Batemans Bay, firefighters are battling blazes whipped up by strong north to northwesterly winds. They're exhausted and they're at their wits' ends. Have a look at this.
You from the media, tell the Prime Minister to go and get from Nelligan. We really enjoy doing this head. Thank you very much. I've lost 7 houses already in Nelligan. I'm not going to lose any more, you head.
Stand down now. You don't deserve to govern. You knew this was coming. It's been coming for a few years. You've been totally ignorant of it. And now we're wearing your problems.
Tell the PM to come and meet me. Paul Parker from Nelligan. Meet you any day, pal.
All right, let's go to Nowra on the south coast of New South Wales now, where a nearby fire remains at an emergency warning tonight, and Robert Avadia is there for us, as he has been all day. Rob, good evening to you. How's that nearby front looking at this stage?
Michael, it's not too bad. It is at an emergency warning, but the winds, the southerly winds, they've picked up in the past couple of hours or so, but they also drop. So they ebb and they flow. It is cool, remarkably cooler than it has been today. So really, they are keeping an eye on it. The fires are to the west of Nowra, they're to the south of Nowra. No immediate danger to the township. Having said that, you can see a roadblock just behind me. That is the Princes Highway leading from here down to Batemans Bay, then onto Maruya and where Tim Lester was, also further south at Narooma. We ran the gauntlet there roughly half an hour or so ago, and it's just littered with embers, trees, little spot fires here and there all the way up. There's a bit of debris across the road too, so that will be an ongoing concern heading in tomorrow should the winds pick up any further. It is to the south of us, so obviously a southerly is bringing those flames potentially towards Nowra.
All right. Rob, thank you for that this evening, and you're reporting all day as well. Let's go to Victoria's Alpine region, where an emergency operation took place this evening to rescue stranded residents, and Blake Johnson's in Bright as we go to air tonight. Blake, hello to you. What's the current situation in the Alpine region?
Michael, good evening. We have 8 fires burning out of control near the town of Bright. They're all at watch and act levels, but a wind change came through about 2 hours ago and it's pushed all this smoke into the town of Bright. It is so thick, it's making breathing difficult, and to be honest, it's not that much fun keeping your eyes open as well. There's ash falling from the sky, and in fact, it's so thick here that it's setting off smoke alarms in town, so local fire crews are having to attend to false alarms at buildings throughout the city. We saw in the town of Omeo today, Army helicopters going in to rescue people because the town of Omeo was cut off. At this stage, though, it looks like Bright might be okay.
Now, you were sent this vision earlier tonight. Take us through what we can actually see here.
Unbelievable vision, this. This is a flight from Sydney to Melbourne, just as it was crossing the border from New South Wales into Victoria, not far over the Alpine region, actually. Someone sent me this video out of the window of the smoke plume going into the sky. It gives you a real indication of how much CO2 we're pumping in. A report in December said that we'd already put 50% of our yearly emissions into the sky. Last week as well, the smoke was appearing in New Zealand. With pictures like that, it's very easy to understand why our fires are being noticed, not just here, but internationally as well.
All right, Blake Johnson, thank you for that. In Malakuta, apocalyptic scenes have played out since New Year's Day. Reporter Cassie Zervos is there for us. Cassie, good evening to you. Now, since earlier this afternoon, the sun has been completely blocked out. Can you just describe what that is like?
Good evening, Michael. Well, at 2:30 this afternoon, it felt more like midnight, and it has looked like midnight. The sky was blanketed of red haze and thick black smoke. There was ash and embers falling from the sky. It was incredibly hard to breathe and see. It is still very, very difficult to breathe and see as we go to air tonight. Now, this all comes after more than 4,000 people were evacuated to the foreshore earlier in the week when raging bushfires took hold of Malakuta. We did see yesterday that more than 1,000 people were also evacuated onto 2 Navy ships, thankful to be leaving this beautiful beach coastal town.
Yeah, I bet they were thankful, but look, they've certainly evacuated a number of people. But how many people remain on that coastline now, Cassie?
Well, what we know is that the people who still remain in town are families with young toddlers. They weren't able to go onto these Navy ships, so they were heavily relying on aircraft today, but due to these horrific weather conditions, they weren't able to leave. But the Navy did brief those who are still in town earlier tonight, and also the media, to let them know that tomorrow another HMAS Navy ship will be arriving, so those who do want to leave with their young children will have the opportunity to.
Just give me an idea, because obviously television doesn't capture it for us, Cassie. That smoke that you're breathing in right now, that everybody is there, full of ash, what is it like?
It is incredibly hard to breathe. It's also very hard to see. Our eyes have been stinging for the last couple of days. When you go into town, people are wearing face masks the whole time. Myself and our cameraman, he is also wearing a face mask. The smoke is just taken over, and it's really affecting those people in town. And today we've seen parents forcing these face masks on their children because the smoke is just completely taking over. So that's one of the main priorities of this evacuation. It's just not safe, so that's why the Navy are stepping in.
Indeed. All right, Cassie Zervos, thanks for that tonight.
Thank you.
Usually a popular holiday spot, tonight Lakes Entrance is looking more like a ghost town after thousands fled that area, and Tom Chadwick joins me live there tonight. Tom, hello to you. 6 people are still missing from the East Gippsland area. What is predicted over the next 24 hours?
Well, Michael, good evening to you. Regardless of those alarming figures of those still 6 people missing, hopefully some respite for the people here of East Gippsland. But here in Lakes Entrance, it's still an eerie and extremely windy feeling. As you mentioned, it feels like a ghost town, what is usually a nice tourist spot featuring something like 5,000 people, rather. It's now difficult to even picture. There would almost be 100 people here in the town as we speak. Almost all residents and holiday makers evacuated yesterday. The shops, the pubs and the restaurants, they were all closed apart from one solitary cafe that was serving the brave people who decided to stay. Speaking of brave people, you may be able to see behind me the fireys have actually just pulled in the last half an hour, so hopefully they can get a good night's rest. In terms of the nearest fire, considering Lakes Entrance is so close to now, we've just heard in the last half an hour or so, there is still an evacuation warning for the Now fire, which is about a 25-minute drive to the right of me here. Now, that fire actually brought huge gusts of wind here to Lakes Entrance. The sky was extremely dark at around 3 p.m. But, Michael, I guess in the next 24 hours for the people here of East Gippsland and specifically Lakes Entrance, hopefully the worst has passed. And we are actually even predicting some light rain over the next 12 hours. And by God, these locals deserve it.
Wouldn't that be incredible? And may it spread. Tom Chadwick, thank you for that tonight. Let's go now to Kangaroo Island off the coast of South Australia. 2 people have lost their lives there in catastrophic bushfires. The fires also destroyed a significant amount of property, including a hotel that was once the country's best. The 7 News reporter Mark Mooney joins us now from Kangaroo Island. Mark, hello to you again. The blaze there has been described as virtually unstoppable. So what do we know now about the 2 lives lost?
Yeah, good evening, Michael. We know that they are father and son, Dick and Clayton Lang. Dick Lang, 78 years old. He was very well known in these parts and right across South Australia. A tour operator. He operated small aircraft out of Adelaide Airport, taking thousands of Australians and people from right across the globe to some of the far reaches of our continent, the outback. His son, Clayton, was a leading plastic surgeon in Adelaide as well. Their family is obviously heartbroken. They released a statement late this afternoon thanking people for their well wishes. Obviously devastated by this double tragedy. The pair were heading back to their farm here on Kangaroo Island at the height of yesterday's horrific blaze. They'd been fighting other fires in the area for a couple of days, heading back to their farm when they were overcome on the Playford Highway. We were there a little earlier today and their car sits with a trailer on the side of that highway. Very, very tragic, Michael.
Yeah, it is indeed. Mark, there's such widespread destruction on that island. It's quite incredible. But some really sad news regarding the koala population there.
Yeah, that's right. They estimate there were about 50,000 koalas here on Kangaroo Island. It's obviously a major tourist draw card. They're saying it could be as much as half of that population has been wiped out during this fire. Remember, about a third of the island has been burned, more than 150,000 hectares. So there are hundreds of now injured koalas that are being treated locally. Authorities are urging people. The problem they're having is that people are feeling sorry for these koalas, rightfully so. They're taking them from the island, taking them back to the mainland, back to Adelaide, and trying to get them help there. The problem with that is that the population here is the only one in South Australia without chlamydia, which is a really debilitating disease for koalas. So they're urging people, when they find these koalas by the side of the road, leave them and contact authorities.
All right, Mark Mooney, thank you for that from Kangaroo Island. Still to come, a forensic fire expert explains what's making these blazes just so volatile and dangerous, how the staff at Mogo Zoo are bracing themselves for another flare-up, plus the immense cost of the bushfire crisis. It is building, as you'd expect, how you can help. That's all coming up next on the latest from 7 News. Now, these fires have been some of the worst in the nation's history, but exactly what is making them so volatile and so dangerous? Greg Kelly is one of Australia's most experienced forensic fire examiners, and he joins me now. Greg, thanks for joining the latest this evening.
Pleasure.
You've worked on some of the biggest bushfires, that's for sure, the Canberra fires, Engadine, Parkerville in WA. In your opinion, why are these fires so severe?
It would appear in fire investigation, the big thing we've got to look at is fuel. In that light, it suggests to me that the fuel load that's been available to it's extraordinary. My experience, I've never seen this type of response and the size and the magnitude of it, how widespread they are in my career.
So why has the fuel load been allowed to get where it's at now and become so volatile?
Well, I think there's a number of competing forces in that. The backburning operations that used to take place don't take place today. We seem to be more influenced by maintaining the ecology of an area and the safekeeping of animals and things, which is a highly important thing to be considerate of. But at the same time, looking over these fires that the public have experienced now, we have people who have died.
What about the coordination, though, between things like, forestry protection, local councils, the energy supply companies? They all play a role.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And in some of the legal matters I get asked to put opinion on, I read the briefs of evidence where there are things like councils stopping energy supply companies from cutting back vegetation and then maintaining safe distances between aerial conductors in the electrical supply system. So we've got this disconnect between the electrical supply needing to be maintained on telegraph poles and wires, creating an unsafe situation where they may be in close proximity to vegetation that no one wants touched. So I think collectively we need to have a better look at who's responsible and how we maintain everyone's interests, but certainly keeping an underlying view of people's safety.
No, I should say too, for our viewers, you were actually caught up in this a couple of days ago at Lake Conjola, and you had to head for the hills. So you've seen this fire up close and what it's capable of. What are we going to learn from these fires, do you think?
Well, I think there'll probably be a pretty good inquiry come out of it, and hopefully people will put their own agendas to one side. It's about time that we collectively as a community come to a consistency in approach that's going to be for everyone's benefit.
Have the fire management issues in the past been too driven by agendas?
Maybe the lack of direction. You know, we look at who's responding. You've got Rural Fire Service, Country Fire Authority in different states, and they all have the legislation that they operate under. We're going to see a situation here where we've got to work out when does one of these events actually lead to a call that someone presses a button or says, right now, this is what's got to be this is the response we have. Everyone pulls together under that one lot of leadership.
All right, Greg Creeley, thanks for joining The Latest.
Pleasure.
Staff at Mogo Wildlife Park on New South Wales South Coast have been working tirelessly over the past few days to save hundreds of animals from the bushfires, and now they're bracing themselves for an expected flare-up. We're joined now by the Park Director, Chad Staples. Chad, good to talk to you again, and thank you for joining The Latest. What's the conditions that you have there tonight? I'm guessing they're unpredictable.
Yeah, it's a bit that way. So the southerly has come in, but with any change of wind, it sort of comes with some relief, but also you start watching for a different direction. So the temperature change is nice, but the direction of the wind has been a challenge. You've had a real battle on your hands protecting your animals. So tell us which animals have been moved from their enclosures and where have they been moved? Okay, so it was kind of a mixed bag. There were quite a few smaller animals that came up to my house. So small primates primarily, so some tamarins, some marmosets. The biggest thing were a couple of red pandas that came up for a little while, but everyone's now back on display because the direction of where the fire was come from has changed now. Which have been the hardest to move? I don't imagine it's easy to move some of your animals. The red pandas were not interested in coming up to the house. It took some convincing for them to want to come down. Most of the little monkeys, they were okay, and then some really big things like gorillas, orangutans, lions and tigers, at least they went into their night dens, which made them happy. That's a good result for them. What do you do in these conditions to generally keep the animal population calm? I'd imagine that would be an almost impossible task. Look, to be honest, the best thing we can do to them is almost fake it. So the more normal that we can provide everything around them to be, the better. So obviously moving them out of the enclosure is the last resort, which we never want to do. What we did with giraffe and zebra, we actually left them down on their paddocks so that they could have free range and put themselves where they wanted to be. So all we've tried to do is have the same keepers do the same routine, same food, same water as much as possible, just so that they're not picking up on it, because they'll pick up on our stresses. It looks like you've got a lot of support from the community though, Chad. Oh, mate, it's been phenomenal. Like, yeah, it's times like this that you're really warmed by the hearts of people. You know, I've got a new best friend now in Emma Hassar. She's just been outstanding, the way that she has just jumped to our rescue. Kennard's Hire has been amazing. They were the ones that sent down our huge generator, which really saved us. And Coles, as far as fruit and veg goes, you know, we now have enough here for a week, no matter what happens.
And Chad, I mean, you've been flat out trying to protect your own animals, but when you hear reports like we've been reporting tonight of half the koala population, potentially 25,000 of them have been lost on Kangaroo Island, for example, and that's happening in all koala populations. When you hear of animal loss, how does that make you feel?
Oh, mate, I'm saddened beyond belief. One of my best mates is the guy who owns the wildlife park on Kangaroo Island. I've been in contact with him today. We're sort of sharing horror stories, and when you hear those numbers, it sounds unbelievable. It's just too big to truly comprehend. This is going to knock us around a lot.
All right, good on you. Always good to talk to you. Chad Staples, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, mate.
As Australia's bushfire crisis deepens, insurance claims have already surpassed $300 million, with a 20% jump in claims in 24 hours. I'm joined now by Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton. Gem, good evening to you. What's the rough cost of these devastating fires so far?
Well, Michael, it's very difficult to put down even a rough cost because there are so many industries and communities affected in different ways. But starting with insurance is quite a common thing to do. What we know so far is the Insurance Council of Australia says there are 5,259 claims that have been lodged since November the 8th, and that's totaling around $321 million. But this does not include the devastation of today or even last night or yesterday afternoon, because the numbers take a while to update. So clearly they're going to rise significantly from here. Furthermore, anybody who's lost their property or means of work who wasn't insured or underinsured, this isn't counted in the tally. So 321 million is the absolute floor, and already much higher than that.
This number's going to skyrocket, isn't it?
Is.
There's no doubt about that. Look, besides the insurers, who else is severely impacted?
Tourism industry suffered greatly. Just in the short term, hundreds of millions of dollars of losses from cancelled or disrupted holidays. Over the medium term, it'll take time to rebuild some of these holiday areas, and also a longer term concern that people will be put off going to bushfire-prone regions in future hot summers. Agriculture's taken another massive walloping after years and years of drought. But on the flip side, when you do have a crisis like this and there is such devastation, there is a lot of activity to be generated from it. Construction, so there will be some growth to come out of it too.
Look, here's the big question though. Everyone is asking, how can we help? What can we do?
Yeah, so it's very difficult sometimes to match people's generosity and good intentions with what people on the ground actually need. So any organisation that's leading a relief effort will say, please give cash above anything else. Food donations, clothing, electrical goods can be very hard to store and to distribute to the people who need them the most. Many organisations, some of whom you're seeing on your screen right now, do have coordinated efforts in place, so please go through a registered organisation. I really do want to give a shout out to one particular famous Australian, the comedian Celeste Barber, who organised a campaign about a day ago and has already managed to raise $9 million through people's generosity.
Amazing,
I've been watching the tally go up on Facebook, and it's going up and up and up every couple of minutes.
And that's just by reaching out to the people that follow her on social media.
It is, and it's just spread, so it's a very admirable effort.
$9 million. It's great. We need more of it. Well done. All right, Gemma, thank you for that. Thanks for joining us. We'll have more of this special bushfire crisis edition of the latest from 7 News just a moment. Welcome back. We're taking a look at a really heartwarming moment earlier today when a man shared his water with a dehydrated kangaroo. That was in Cobargo in New South Wales. We'll leave it up and have a look at the temperatures around the country. 32, partly cloudy in Brisbane. Canberra staying smoky and 27. Sunny and 33 for Perth. In some other parts, very hot and 42 in Tamworth. 33 with smoke haze in Wagga Wagga. Possible storm and 31 in Karratha. In some breaking news tonight, emergency services are racing to Cooma in southern New South Wales after a water tower reservoir burst. These are some still images coming in from the scene, the first pictures. There are reports that homes have been flooded and cars washed away, with water levels waist deep there in that incident. Now, our final frame, and tonight we're going to end on this image. A photo of scuffed and worn boots belonging to a New South Wales RFS firefighter. Might not look like anything out of the ordinary, but once you take a closer look, you'll see the soles of the boots, crucial protection from the scorching ground, have completely melted away. The firefighter apparently didn't even notice until the end of his shift. It is a reminder of the tireless and endless work of all the firefighters right across the country. And so tonight, those boots and what they mean are our final frame. Thank you for your company this evening. Weekend Sunrise is going to be back first thing tomorrow morning, special time 6 a.m. And from the team here at 7 News for now, that is the latest. I'm Michael Usher. Have a good night.